Welcome to Hagerstown Forward, a podcast where we highlight the people and issues that bring Hagerstown forward. We are Magnus and Marie Dahlgren, your hosts. In this episode, we talk to Tereance Moore. Tereance is a local business owner. He supports and advocates for local entrepreneurs, and he works to move the community forward. And now, here's our conversation with Tereance Moore. This is Hagerstown Forward, and we are here with Tereance Moore. So, Tereance Moore, how would you like to be introduced?
Right now, I'm Tereance Moore of Tereance Moore Consulting. I have a local business, and I'm supportive of and advocating for local entrepreneurs and, as you said, moving the community forward.
All right, very good.
I have a question right away.
Yes.
Why it's so important for you to bring community forward?
I'm a transplant to this community. I'm originally from New York City. I came here about 14 years ago, and I come from a large family, and community is just another word for family, if you ask me. And I've grown a lot and taken a lot from this community, and it's just an opportunity to give back. I've seen this community have some ebbs and flows, and I've seen this community stall based on some of the things with the economy that happened. And I just see so much opportunity and hope for this community, and I just want to be a part of that.
That's great. Thank you.
Could you please share your goals with us for the next 5 years, personal and business goals?
My personal goals, personally, I would like to see my company flourish, and in turn with my company flourishes, it kind of goes in parallel with the economy. Of small business, because one of the goals of my company is to help small businesses and employees transition from an employee focus to an entrepreneur focus. So if my company flourishes over the next 5 years, small businesses in this community will also flourish. We have a huge opportunity in Hagerstown to develop small businesses. We have great infrastructure around larger businesses in our county area, around the malls and around some of the big merchandise stores like Walmarts and Targets. As you can see, we have the customer base here, but we struggle for our small businesses to thrive, whether it's lack of knowledge of how to be a successful business owner, or lack of opportunity, or lack of leadership to drive that opportunity to them. So I think there's a lot of gap. I think we have all the pieces in place here, and I think we just need some of the leadership and some of the knowledge to kind of put those pieces together so we can have those small business owners thrive. I recently adopted the saying that the American dream has moved from being a homeowner to being a business owner. And we've seen what happened when everyone chased the American dream back in the early 2000s. You know, they were taken advantage of. Everything was there for them. They ran into being homeowners, and because they didn't have the right knowledge, they slowly were manipulated and were quickly pushed out of their homes. And we're seeing the same thing with businesses now. We're seeing people right here in Hagerstown go into business, and 6 months later, less than a year, they're out of business. These are people who are walking away from jobs that they've spent 10, 15, 20 years in, and their life savings they're throwing into small businesses, and just seeing go in the front door and out the other, and they're having to return into the job market. That's hurting the community, that's hurting those families, and we need to do better. So my goals is to hurt in the next 5 years, we see less of that, and we see a more uptick of entrepreneurs in our community.
What causes some of these businesses to fail? Is it always lack of funding, or what are you seeing?
One, it's lack of knowledge. And I can't say it's one thing, but one thing I do see is lack of knowledge. We have something, SCORE, which I do volunteer for. SCORE is a volunteer program that we have here in town, that we have nationally, that actually provides mentorship for retired entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs who volunteer their services and mentor small business owners on how to start a business, how to market, and right in the exact field that they're in. No one knows about it. No one takes advantage of it. We have it based right here in our town, and we struggle to get the knowledge out and get people to take advantage of that opportunity. People go into businesses thinking they can just walk in, get the money, have the funding, and open up shop right away. We have a huge base here right now with renters, people who have real estate, who are renting spaces, they're real estate. You know, when you have commercial real estate, you're a small business owner as well, and you take advantage of other small business owners because they're your clients and they're your customers. So you're pushing that business, which people are running into, and they're getting spaces and they're renting spaces, and ideally, is that the best thing for them? So it's about negotiating and finding some of those best practices between small business owners as well, and those networks that we have here. So I think it's a lot of lack of knowledge, a lot of gaps, some missed opportunities for those small business owners to kind of navigate the opportunities that are available to them, and going into them blindly. You don't know how many times I walked into a small business and spoke to the owner and they don't have a business plan. Why are your doors open? How did you start your business without a business plan? You don't have profit and loss. You don't have expenses. You don't have the necessities to run your business, but yet you're already operating in your business. So it's like trying to change the tire of a car that's in motion. It's almost impossible at times to save yourself because you started before you should have. So that's one part. It's the lack of knowledge, the lack of education to actually start a business. The second part is of infrastructure. To start a business, you need clients, you need customers, you need foot traffic, you need the leaders in your community to be providing that for you. So you need an infrastructure around you. So when you open up your doors, it was the number one rule of business: location, location, location. And if you don't have that infrastructure of people to come into your shops or walk past your business, then why open your doors in the first place? So you rely on your leaders to create that infrastructure for you, create the events in town, create the secure environment where people want to come and other businesses want to be attracted in town, where you can make business. Businesses rely on other businesses. Right. So if one business shuts down, that doesn't just hurt that business, that hurts every other business around them. Right. So I think twofold, those are two of the major issues that you see around here. And the third one is community. We got to take some accountability on ourselves as well. If you get up and you decide that you're hungry, and you decide that you have two options: to go to a small local business or go to a multi-million-dollar facility that's already thriving. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy I'm not going to call names of some of these businesses, but we all know the big name businesses that are located at the big box merchants out there as well. But you got to make a choice. You got to invest in your own. If it's going to cost you an extra $2 to spend locally, then spend the $2, because that $2 is an investment into your own community. That $2 is an investment into your neighbor, into your own infrastructure, into your own economy. So we have to take some accountability ourselves. We also have to watch what we say, watch how we advertise, watch how we market. The best marketing we have is word of mouth, and we too frequently go on social media and destroy our own neighbors and destroy our own small businesses. If you talk ill about a multi-billion-dollar business, it doesn't hurt them as bad as when you go out and destroy a small business because you had a bad experience or believe you had a bad experience, or you don't like someone, or you didn't want to give them the opportunity to go in, or especially when you can easily walk into a small business and shake the hand of the owner. Why not take that opportunity instead of going on social media and partaking in comments of establishment you may not even ever have been in? And I see it too often that we destroy our own community without doing what we used to do of socializing. And it's funny that social media is destroying us because we no longer are social. So
it's the paradox.
Exactly. So not to go too far on the tangents, I would say it would be those three things.
Okay. You mentioned this about small businesses. What counts as a small business?
Specifically, a small business is anything that has less than 500 employees. So that's what really says what a small business is. But When I think of a small business, I consider a small business anything that has anywhere between 5 to 10 employees. When you think about a small area like this, Hagerstown has about population about 40,000 residents. Right. So if you say if a small business has 500 employees, that doesn't leave room for many many small businesses. So I say anywhere from about 5 to 10. And most small businesses, if you really think about it, has 1 to 2 employees. I have a small business. I'm 1 employee. So you got to take that into consideration when you say small businesses. So we really, so when I usually reference small businesses, I say the smaller businesses, right, because small business by definition is up to 500.
How big of a part of the economy would you say small business is? And I'm saying that because it seems like we tend to talk about the larger employers in this area, but they might only hire 20% of the workforce, whereas small businesses really stand for 80% of the workforce. I don't know what the proportion is there. Maybe you can shed some light.
I don't want to quote the exact numbers, but I believe smaller businesses make up the larger part of our workforce. Right. I don't want to quote the exact numbers without being accurate, but I can attest that it makes up a much larger part of our workforce, especially around this area. And we have some larger employers in this area that or where has been a transition as well. And we're in a unique area where it's not just Hagerstown. We're a 4th state. So we have surrounding cities that are dependent as well. So we transplant from other areas. So when we have a business that sets up shop here in Hagerstown, we compete with employees from Waynesboro, Greencastle, Frederick, Martinsburg. Right. So it's difficult in this economy here in Hagerstown as well. So being a resident here, it's not easy. Even from a small business owner, to set up shop from that standpoint. So I think it's very important to have more small businesses available to us, because those big box stores, when they open up, they know that. So they get the pick of the litter. So they put up their advertisements, now hiring, and the floodgates open because everyone's looking for jobs in our economy, So they get the pick of the litter. So now what happens to everyone else? That's when those small businesses become important. That's when we can we can start hiring and take care of our own in our communities and start making sure that we have employment and help the employment rate in our communities as well.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the services which your company is going to provide or already providing to help to benefit small businesses?
I kind of go from nuts and bolts of services. I from an employee to entrepreneur phase is where someone decides that I'm no longer interested in working a 9 to 5. And I kind of make the analogy when someone gets to the point when they look in the mirror and they're ready to see that. When they look in the mirror in the morning, they want to see the boss in the mirror, and they no longer want to get up in the morning and decide whether or not they want to call out. And I tell them, if you look in the mirror and you say, I want to call out of work, then you're an employee. Because once you do, if you can't do that once you own your own business, there's no calling out anymore. Right. So you're on the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's about changing that mentality from an employee standpoint. So I sit down with anyone who's interested in starting a small business, and I do a consultation with them completely free of charge and kind of work through that mindset and that education that I spoke about of what steps you're going to need to get into a business. And I do that free consultation because a lot of people realize in that upfront that this is something I have no interest in doing. I'm going back to work tomorrow. and some people get excited and they want to go and they want to jump right into it. And at that point, I start working with them and I become more hands-on and kind of help them through that process. And that's where my services come in and teach them where to find the resources, how to develop a business plan and how to do it economically. Because again, it's about people being taken advantage of as well. As soon as you start a business and you hang your shingles up, you become shark food. So everybody wants to sell you something. Everybody wants to market you something. Everybody wants to advertisement. Everybody wants to say you need this program, you need this, you need that. When you can do some of the simplest things with pen and paper and an Excel sheet. So I try to teach them kind of the easiest way to get into business, the most economical way to develop themselves and get ready to do the job they need, and not only but grow incrementally, so they can save the money they need, build the nest egg, and be prepared for tomorrow, and be prepared for the worst day that will come. So, and if that worst day never comes, they're the luckiest small business that ever came into business ever. So that's kind of where I start from an employee standpoint, and if they want, I kind of work with them throughout that process based on what they need going forward. So it's that introductory process. Where I usually get involved mainly is businesses that are already started up, and a lot of these businesses that are in trouble, are ready to grow. So I come in and I kind of recognize where they need to make a transition. So either they are something small and they realize there's a new niche, whether they need help doing some new kind of marketing and bringing in a new customer base, whether they're having problems with their employees. So I come in and I do mediation. I actually have a mediator on staff that comes in who's a certified mediator who helps mediate relationships between partners, between employees, between the staff. We come and that's where my degree is in organizational leadership. I help the organization run leaner if possible. Something weird I kind of do is I come in and I work for them as an employee for a time being, even if I'm a bartender or a waitress or whatever. I want to do the job to understand the job, so I can come in and understand the work that they do and find out a leaner way to do the work for them. So I work and I partner with them as long as I can, and sit down and we come up with a plan for either their growth or their repair. And I work with them that way. I can be as hands-on as they want me to be, or I can be as hands-off.
That's great. Thank you.
Now, you said that you're starting to go full-time with your own business, and I imagine that's part of your path towards success, or you're succeeding, as it were. Could you share one personal habit with us that leads to your success, that contributes to your success?
A personal habit, I could say I always do my research. I always listen and take some kind of nugget back from every conversation and research it. It may be a little weird. Like before I go to bed every night, I research something I learned that day, whether it's a product, whether someone said a word, something I've seen on television, just a little bit of knowledge that I can add to my tool belt every day. And I'm big on putting another tool on my tool belt. It's always great to go into a construction site with too many tools than going there with not enough. Right. So I always try to do a little bit of research. And sometimes I'll go down a rabbit hole and maybe go too far and get too much information. But you never heard someone complain that I had too much information. Right. Not enough will get you in trouble. Right. Too much may slow you down, but not enough will put you at a halt. Mm-hmm. So
better to have it and not need it than
absolutely
need it not have it.
Absolutely. So that's one of the habits that I've picked up, trying to be a jack of all trades as much as I can.
All right. What would you say your passion is?
My passion is people. I've managed people my entire life since I've been 16 years old. I quickly had a passion. Well, probably younger than that, because with 8 siblings, I learned to manage people quickly. With 6 sisters, I had to manage people just to get in the bathroom as a child. But I learned to navigate people. I was a people watcher even as a young child. Being very introverted, I learned people skills and understanding the value of listening. And the value of people wanting to be heard and people wanting to feel valued over forcing my thoughts and my opinion on other people. And because of that, I think I've always been viewed and and I say this from the feedback I've received as somewhat of a strong leader. Every person that I've managed, every team that I've managed, I have a relationship with one or more of those people today. And I'm talking about from people I managed when I managed a grocery store when I was 16 years old, that I still have a relationship with in some form or format, that still relate to me as a mentor or still keep in touch when you still ask me questions. I always go into an environment of leading versus managing. Something before it became a mantra, it was something I always done naturally, that I always felt uncomfortable standing over someone and always wanted to stand alongside them. So that's always been my passion. I always want to succeed as a group rather than have individual success.
So you said you had 8 siblings. Where in that range do you fit in? Oldest, youngest, middle?
I'm the baby boy. So I'm the second from the youngest. Mm-hmm. But I'm the oldest from the maturity standpoint, and they'll all tell you this as well. So I'm not gonna get beat up for saying this when I get back home to New York. But they all look at me as I was always the old soul from a maturity standpoint, the numbers guy, the one that was always in business, the one that was always in the book. So always chased after my sisters as if I was the bigger brother. So that I always kind of was the protector from that standpoint. Right. So yes.
Now you're involved in a lot of things, not just your work, but you get involved in the community. What does it give you to be involved? What does it bring you? Peace. If I had to put it in one word, peace.
I think when you are involved, you sleep better at night. To know that you're part of the solution, because if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Sure. I know that's a little cliche, but it's the truth. If you turn a blind eye, and I've been part of the problem. When I came to Hagerstown, I came as a transplant, and I worked for a corporation, and that's all I did. I worked for that corporation. I went home. If I did anything, I left the town. I hadn't been into the center of the town for years. I lived in a bedroom community. I commuted. Anytime I wanted to do anything, I went back to the city. I was a city boy, and I felt like I was vacationing when I was here. So I never really did anything here. It's like, when you go on vacation to a new town, you don't go inside the town. You kind of stay in a resort area. And that's kind of how I was here for so many years. And then when I got more involved in the city, and I realized there was a whole community here that, I was neglecting. And once I got involved, I couldn't go back anymore. It was once you become aware, then you got to do something about it. And that's why I struggle with staying in that realm of being aware for too long. It's like being in purgatory forever. It's that comfortable, like I know what's going on. Okay, now I got to do something about it. So that's what it gives me. It gives me that peace to know that I'm involved. I'm holding myself accountable, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right, as a human being, as a person in our society.
So you feel like you evolved a bit when you had that moment of realizing this was your community. Could you share a moment with us when during your journey when you had an aha moment, when you
the biggest aha moment?
The biggest aha moment. I mean, that might have been a realization moment when you said this is your community, but is there a bigger moment somewhere that
one big I was part of a recent last year, probably the biggest aha moment was last year. Last year I started working with the community a little bit more down in the Robert W. Johnson Community Center. And I recognized that it would be a good opportunity to kind of work with some leaders. And I was looking for a purely business standpoint. Right. Wasn't looking from a community standpoint. It was more of kind of create more business networking. So it was kind of local, but it still wasn't ingrained in the community. So I put together a group of gentlemen with a partner of mine, Rod Irish, and we were going to put together a group called the Fellowship of young men who were potential leaders in the community, and we were going to put together this male leadership group, and we were going to network and work on business goals and make money, and that was the sole focus of what we were going to do. And we had our first meeting. We sat down and we started talking about some of the issues. And as we sat and talked about some of the issues, it was less about money. It was less about griping, about complaining. It was more about talking about some serious issues that we were all being affected by in the community. And it was eye-opening, especially the number of men that was in the community that I had never crossed paths with in the 12, 13 years that I had been in the community, that didn't even weren't aware who they were and what they had been doing in the community. And which was my aha moment. If these are just the guys that I met through Rod, I can imagine a number of other community leaders or men or women in the community that I had no idea even existed, that I hadn't connected with, that wanted to do good things in their community as well, and wanted to be leaders in the community. And it wasn't just about money. So we kept having the meetings, and more people came, and more ideas were shared. And then we started saying, if we're going to have these meetings, it's no more about money. We can make money, but if you come to this meeting, part of the fellowship is, if we're going to help you, it has to be about community first. So we made it the foundation about the fellowship was about the community first. So we brought in more and more people, and that's how I started consulting and helping people, was through the fellowship. Some of those business owners was talking about how their businesses were suffering in the community and they needed help, and I was giving them free advice. And I said, I'll give you free advice, but you got to take care of the community. Right. So if the community has something going on in the community, you got to give back. All right. So I'm going to help you profit if you help the community prosper. And so I started doing pro bono work for these small businesses. And that was my aha moment, saying, if we just bring people together, we all have the same issues. Right. We just need the glue.
The fellowship, is that open to anybody? Is it?
Yes.
Just open door?
Yeah, it was just an open door, and we opened it up, and it became less of a formal thing, and became more of a kind of a mission going forward, and of everyone I've connected with over the last year now. And we've created more of a diversity network that we've worked with. We've expanded from like I said, it was a group of African American men that then became a group of minorities, then it became a group of men and women, and it's just now it's just a group of people who was advocating for change in the community. So it's not singling anybody out, it's everybody now who has one united cause, who wants to see change in the community and unite against change.
Have you run across any groups that are similar to this, or this is unique?
Yes, we haven't run across any groups that are similar, but we've ran across people who wanted to do the same thing, who have tried to do the same thing, who have wanted to be part of something, or who have been part of other initiatives, who have tried to have sub-teams or subcommittees who have done the same thing. And we have a lot of some of our larger groups and our larger committees or municipal groups here in Hagerstown who have some diversity groups and diversity committees as well, but people either are not aware of them or don't feel comfortable with them. I don't know. I'm not making an assumption. I'm just taking what the feedback I've received from individuals. Right. So I can't say overarching what it is, but it's about connection and people feeling comfortable with who's reaching out to them, and just to be blunt, sometimes it's about who's reaching out to them. Sometimes it's about a familiar face. It's about somebody who's going to be reaching out, who's not in a position that they think is taking advantage of them, or from a position of power or exploitation. So I think that's some of the benefits that I've seen.
All right.
And what do you value the most in people?
What do I value the most in people? That everybody has good in them, but we all have past experiences, and I'm honest about that. And that's why children are amazing, because I believe every child is the brightest light, and society dims that light over time. and adults are the example of the dimmest light possible. So, and that's why I say, and my goal is kind of finding out what dimmed everyone's light, and getting that to be put aside. And that's why I said, and that's one of the things about listening to people, and finding out that conversation, because it's about what your past experience was. Because I'm not going to get you to understand what I'm talking about or agree with me unless I understand what perspective you're looking at it from. And what perspective you're looking at it from is based on what happened to you 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago sometimes. So until I can realize that it's not about sometimes the moment that we're in this discussion. So it's about finding that everyone has that little light and the truth in them. So that's what I know about people, that everyone has that light still. It's about what's dimming that light.
Right. And what is your mission?
My mission? My mission is, personally, my mission is to find peace and happiness in my personal life, where I don't have to have the anxiety that exists in the world. The world is a scary place, and it gets scarier and scarier every day. And I personally don't have any children, but I'm scared for the children that walk this earth right now. And it's to make a better place for them. I know that sounds like I'm in a pageant, but no. But honestly, that's how I was raised. And I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I grew up in the '90s in New York City, and I haven't been more scared since then than I am right now. With the state of where we are in the world, even though it looks a lot better on the surface, it's just as scary as far as where we're at and the nature of where man and women's hearts stand right now. So it's about making it a better place for people, and just kind of bridging that gap. And inclusion is one of the big things that I struggle with right now. Just a couple of weeks ago when I was traveling, and I heard about what happened with the KKK here. Like, to hear those 3 letters still resonate today is disgusting. It's disgusting that those 3 letters are even mentioned today, and we're still talking about history. But it's sad. It's sad. But then in the same note, 3 weeks later, I come home and we were able to pull off a urban arts festival in the center of Waynesboro, Main Street, that had a huge turnout, and we were asked by the city to come back and do something quarterly, and people were receptive to it. So in one note where we think everything is horrible and everything is bad, there's so much good that exists, and just that small glimmer of hate and anger and negativity that's out there, we focus so much attention on and give so much awareness to. We give it so much power.
Right.
And my thing is kind of, if we can divert all that attention, it's like an unruly child. If you ignore it long enough sometimes and discipline it enough, it would be exactly, and it'll go away. So
what's a big or the biggest failure you've experienced in your life, and what did you learn from it?
The biggest failure in my life. I don't know. I really don't look at anything as failure, because everything is a learning experience right now. Mm-hmm. I'll be 39 years old in 2 weeks. So nothing's a failure till it's all over with. You know, and so everything right now, I think it was meant to be for a reason. Mm-hmm. So but if I had anything that I look back at that I think I would have enjoyed, is I didn't start a family. You know, I've never been married. I don't have any children. And like I said, though I fear what children has, I do have a lot of knowledge that I would love to pass down, and you know, it's kind of the download into the next generation. And I've found a way to do that with working with children. I volunteer as much as I can with children. Actually sponsor a basketball team for the Ruth Ann Monroe Summer Basketball League. Mm-hmm. they'll be playing Sunday in the championship as well.
All right.
So I find ways to supplement anything that I feel that's missing in my life. So I can't say that it's a complete failure. Even something like school. Like I studied architecture when I was in high school and went to one of the top high schools for architecture and got into it. And my mother wanted to be an architect, and I was on my way. And I got a scholarship to New York Institute of Technology, and I was going to be an architect, and I diverted from that. I got school burnout, and I kind of left school for a while and went into the workforce, but because of that, I worked for a company for 18 years that has afforded me so much opportunities. Maybe I could have been an architect, but I still went back and got my degree later on in life. So and could have been a failure, maybe not. Maybe this is where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm going to be doing great things in Hagerstown that being an architect would have never brought me here. So I can't say anything would really be a failure, just a redirection.
That's great. Do you believe in destiny?
Do I believe in destiny? No, I don't believe in destiny. I believe there's several branches in front of us, and we have the gift of choice. And every time we come up to one of those crossroads, we make a choice, and those extends another row of branches in front of us. So, but none of them takes us backwards, and none of them stops. But there's always about choice, and that's my belief in God, and I think that was God's gift to us, was the gift of choice, and I think
Free will.
Yes, and free will. So, and that's where my belief comes into is with a belief in God. If there was destiny, then we're in a hamster wheel, just playing the game. So, and that's my belief, and I don't force that on anyone else, but I like to believe that I'm making some decisions down here.
Yes, I agree.
We invited you here to talk about things that bring Hagerstown forward. See, being the Hagerstown Forward show or podcast. So, what is something you're working on specifically that you think is bringing Hagerstown forward, or will bring Hagerstown forward from where we are now? Because in the previous discussion we talked about being aware.
Right.
Not that we have so much awareness of these things that.
What's the plan?
What's the plan? No.
Okay. Now can we move on and do based on what we know, what we're aware of?
A couple of things I'm working on. One thing that I'm working on very closely is I'm part of the policing youth policy initiative, which came out of an event that happened, I believe, about a year and a half ago, where we were having some issues with the police and youth in the community that stemmed from police shootings that were happening across the country, awareness of police shooting that were happening across the country, because police shootings have been happening across the country for years. But again, it was one of those things where it was awareness now because the media turned the spotlight on them. So one of the four things, and again, this is one of the things I'm talking about with Hagerstown, was a great opportunity where leadership actually stepped up, and some funding came into place where they wanted to start conversations here in Hagerstown about how to police the youth. And chiefs actually got funding and put people in place and mediators in place to start mediation conversation between the police, community, small business owners, and the youth on a reoccurring basis, where we sit in a room and we sit with mediators in open forum where the police are mandated to show up by their chief. We have mediators assigned, and it's open to any community individual who want to attend. We've had, I believe, 8 sessions so far, and we have discussions about what's going on in the community and what's driving the separation between, or the fear of, the youth against the police, and what's going on in the community, what needs to change. We actually just had Department of Justice in there this week to talk about what happens when children are violated and for parole, about how they go through the system, how money is used, how money is spent in the judicial system with children who are offenders and repeat offenders. We've had some great eye-opening conversation. But here again, the turnout, we had about 30 people in the room last time. We've had up to about 50 people in the room at a time for some of these mediation sessions. But it's great sessions that we had. And ultimately, when the sessions end, we're going to end with a reform policy for how police will interact with the children in our community, and to make sure that we have a better relationship with the children and the community with the police. So I think that's a forefront, and this is action happening. Less about the awareness, more about the action. Yeah. But here is a case where we may be suffering a little bit because we're not focusing on the awareness. Mm-hmm. We're not advertising that this is happening. We have the meetings. We're telling everybody to come in 10. It's open forum. We're getting the same people that come out. We're talking. We're having these conversations. But at the same time, these policies are going to be put in place. And this is what happens once the policies get in place. Everyone's going to have feedback, but no one wants to step up front and do the action. So right now, the people are in the room, and probably 10 people are the same people, 10 people who have been there since day one. But we get some reoccurring people who have been in that room, and we're taking action to put in mandated legislation policy that will be put in place in the city of Hagerstown once we're completed these mediation sessions.
That's great. Thank you.
So when did you decide that you wanted to work on moving Hagerstown forward? What's in your mind? What was the
moment when you decided that I have to do this?
I've always been action-minded. I've always, no matter where I've been someone I'm not a person that sat on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. Even in my business, I've done it in my companies I've worked with. Every company I've been with, I've been on some kind of committee. Even when I first came to Hagerstown, I won an award in the first 3 months for top community volunteer person. Because I jumped on board at my company and just got into the community and volunteered with United Way and Habitat for Humanity and just did a bunch of volunteer work. It's something that's been instilled with me from a child. We spent all week in church. You got into the community. You worked at food banks. We always were involved in the community. So it wasn't something new. It was just something that the opportunities presented themselves more so for the last year in the community, and kind of redirected myself outside of what I was doing in my company, mm-hmm. and more so doing it directly into the community.
All right. From your perspective, and this might touch on the grappling and awareness, but what do you think this community's biggest challenge is? Not just Hagerstown, but maybe the region as well.
To be honest, it's immaturity. It's a lack of prioritizing. It's selfishness. It's a lack of the bigger picture. It's putting one's own career and development in front of the development of the masses, mm-hmm. And it's politics. We talk about people over politics, but all we do is politic. But I get it, because everybody wants to be reelected. So it's twofold. We talk about and we advertise and we're aware because we want votes. Mm-hmm. From the county down to from mayoral, everywhere, everybody wants to get a vote. So this is why every election cycle we get so much attention, but we don't get any action. Mm-hmm. And let me take a step back. We don't get any communication over the action that's happening, because there are boots on the ground out there. Mm-hmm. There are people out there working. There are nonprofits out there working hard to fill the gaps of the funding that we're not getting, that we should be getting, mm-hmm. for our schools and for our communities and for our law enforcement, for our fire departments. There's nonprofits out there busting their humps out there, mm-hmm. Filling in those gaps to help in those areas. So let me not say that there aren't people out there working. And there are people out there in jobs, underpaid and overworked in our communities. But we get this pomp and circumstance of everything else that's going on. We get these parading down the streets because we're in a political cycle. Mm-hmm. And you can watch it swell as we get closer to November. And as we get closer, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then after November, everything deflates. And you wait for another 2 years, and we'll do it all again. And it's sad to say that. And I'm not picking on a politician. It's our culture, and because you have to do it, and it plays on our intelligence. They're pretty much telling us that they're dangling a carrot in front of us to entertain us. It's nothing more than entertainment for votes. They're not talking issues. Tell me what issue is being addressed for this election right now in our community. You can't. No one knows, and this is my problem. And those who do know are the ones who sit alongside the politicians and are the buddies and are the friends that are in that close-knit circle, who take care of one another. And that's the community. We have a siloed community of the privilege, and it's not about privilege about money anymore. It's about privilege of knowledge and exposure, and that's more valuable than money nowadays, because that generates income. That true information and awareness is the most valuable thing we have right now, and our communities aren't getting that. They're being dumbed down more and more every election cycle. That's why no one comes out for mid-cycle. No one comes out for midterm elections anymore. They come out for the generals. They pull down whatever. I'm a Democrat. All right, I voted, and they move on. They don't even. We're not even teaching political science in our schools anymore. We're not even teaching people how to take. We have one important right. That's the right to vote. That's our most important right, and we're not even teaching our children how to use it. It makes no sense, and we're seeing it right here in our community, and it's exploding. It's into the point where we're mocking people at this point in time. We're mocking them showing up in their communities once a year, and at their events, and never showing up again. Like people should be offended that that's happening. That I don't see you but once a year when you come and fly by and read a proclamation and then keep moving. Or you come by and at an event and you stand there and you don't know anyone around you. Like it's sad. It should be upsetting for people in the community. And the people in the community and we own it as well. So I'm not putting this on the politicians, because this goes up as high as the presidency. We know it. We went through our last presidency. We don't know what the issues were being debated when we went through that for almost 2.5 years, and we don't know what issues were being debated. But even from our communities that we're not coming out, we're not voting. And we were at a meeting the other day, and I heard Board of Education. I don't have children, so I'm not removing myself from this, but so that I'm not excusing myself from it either. But for the Board of Education to have meetings, and for 2 people to show up to Board of Education meetings when there are hundreds of kids in school, you're trying to tell me only 2 parents thinks it's interesting enough to show up to a Board of Education meeting to hear about what's going on in their children's? Does that make any sense? Does it make any sense that someone in the Board of Education isn't upset that more parents aren't showing up? Or are they okay that they're not showing up? Again, not point. I'm just saying I'm going on both ends of the aisle here, because I'm not singling any one person out. I'm just saying holistically it's an issue.
So what are some solutions to these issues that we're talking about? Now we know people aren't attending, we aren't interested, we're not voting, we're not. And that's where do we start? It's a big thing. It's a big problem.
And what you're doing right here is a solution. And it goes past awareness, because it's about action. It's about calling people to the carpet. It's about radical media. It's about radical communication. It's to stop sugarcoating headlines about what's going on. It's about letting people say and hear about what's truthfully happening without it becoming a tantrum on social media that turns into profanity and turns into just violent anger blogging, that all of a sudden where that one comment that made sense that everyone should have listened to gets buried because of the nonsense that followed it. And that happens too often. Some times I see something on Facebook and I go, that's a good point. And then it disappears because of all the rhetoric and all the other nonsense that follows it and comments and people and then memes and then like, it's gone.
It gets dumbed down.
Yeah, no one's paying attention to it anymore. It fades into the darkness. So having people and giving people a voice, and you know, it's kind of like reverse censorship now. You know, instead of telling everybody you can't say it, they just gave everyone a voice, so you can't hear the important ones. So, it's too much voice. You turn everything into white noise. Right. So if everyone's talking, you can't hear the information that you need to hear. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one way about it. It's finding those avenues where it's good, valued information being streamed to people who need to hear it. Mm-hmm. It's about stop waiting for people to do the right thing. Right. And I know that sounds sad. That, you know, sometimes you have to go get them, and this is, you know, I'm not trying to relate anyone to a child, so I'm just using this analogy. When I was a child, though, my mother would call me. She called my name once, I didn't answer. She called my name again, I wouldn't answer. She called it louder, I wouldn't answer. But then she would come to my door, and it was a whole different perception when she came to the door. But sooner or later, she had to come and get me. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to get to. I think sooner or later, we're going to have to start going to people's doors. Because that's what the politicians do. Because this is the next step they're going to be doing now. Next step, you're going to hear a politician knocking on your door telling, vote for me. In November, vote for me. Not telling you why you should vote for them. You know what they're doing? Like all these yard signs you see, you know what yard signs are? Yeah. Yard signs, it's psychological warfare. They're just putting a name and face in your head. So when you go inside the ballots, you just say, I remember seeing that name. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Just on a personal note, some candidates, they like to stand on the street corners and wave, and they hold up their sign and they wave at the traffic and without that sign, it would just be a loony waving at the traffic. With the sign, we're now going to possibly give this person our money to buy roads and schools and bridges and things. Nice. But without the sign, loony. With the sign, a trusted politician. Yeah. What are we doing?
You know, there has been evidence of animals being elected. No, animals have been elected in cities because they just use yard signs and just commercials just by blasting names in front of people.
So Oswald the Rabbit could get elected.
Yes,
Oswald for mayor.
Yeah, I've even heard, and again I haven't tested it, but based on the alphabet, the letter in your last name. Mm-hmm. On a ballot, if you had number of candidates, because your last name starts with a letter A or something, you're more likely to be elected. Sorry. Because people vote top down when they don't know. It happens. But again, can you blame them? They don't know. They have no idea. They don't have no idea what these positions are running for. What does a sheriff do? People don't know. You ask people like that, is he a cop? Do they know what his role is? Do they know what his impact? But you're about to vote for a sheriff, about to elect a sheriff, right? You know, what does council people do? You know, what are their roles? What does the mayor do in your town? You know, what does our Congress people do? What are their roles? You know, what are their responsibilities? And I used to see this all the time when people complain about the president. I'm like, the president doesn't even do that job.
It's not in his job description.
It's not in his job description. and people don't get that, and this is where political science and education becomes important, and supplementing that education, and that's the same thing why I go into schools and I teach financial literacy. That's another problem that we have, not giving people the tools. People should know how to spend their money and vote.
Yeah.
You give them those two tools, they're better human beings.
Something I find, I don't know if you call it a paradox or a contradictory, but a business spends a lot of time and effort trying to hire the right person for the job. They take a bunch of candidates in and they ask them questions and they go through the interview process and assessments. How do we elect people? We go into a booth, we look at a name we recognize, and that's the person that is going to handle our money for us in the community or in the country or county or whatever. It just seems like we're not doing our job as voters, but by not studying who these people are, where they come from, what are their qualifications, just like we would in a company hiring somebody to manage things and handle money.
Absolutely, and that's why we have. And I know this is outside of our realm, but we need a shorter election cycle in all realms. Like there should be a 3-month election cycle. You should say, I want to run for office, and in 3 months you should be out in town halls, and people should be coming out. You should be interviewed by the people for the next 3 months. People should vote. You should take office. That's it. Like I don't need to see you for a year and a half out in my face holding your sign. Like I don't need to see that. Like because that's what it boils down to. You really don't do anything until right now. Like all of a sudden, everyone's going to get busy for the next 3 months. Everybody's going to have their town halls and we're knocking on doors and vote for me and I like you. They'll be all in your Facebook posts and they're going to see them all around and walking up to you and how you doing and shaking hands and standing on corners and shaking hands. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of it too. I helped someone get elected. I helped run campaigns before in the past as well. I know how it works. And I know how people, especially now with social media, it's easy. And it's sad, but it's easy. It's a lot easier. And it's getting easier and easier.
Really what we're interested in is the good things about Hagerstown and the positive parts of our community, because yes, we're aware there are problems, but what are some of the best things about the Hagerstown area and how can we best use it to benefit Hagerstown? If there are resources or if there it doesn't have to be just Hagerstown, it can be the whole area.
Like I said before, Hagerstown has everything it needs to be great. Even the leaders in Hagerstown can be great. And so I'm not picking on anybody. I just think it's about focus, redirection, and a commitment to doing the job through a united front. I think right now, Hagerstown, where we're located, is ideal. This location is amazing. Yeah. Amazing. From a resource standpoint, you got battlefields, you have parks, you have golf courses. You couldn't be situated anywhere better right now. Right where we're at right now, from a weather standpoint, anytime bad weather hits, we don't really get horrible weather, because we got mountains that kind of block out the weather most of the time. From a location standpoint, you got historical. Gettysburg is probably just a little bit more historical than we are, with the battlefields that we have, and you see how busy, how economical Gettysburg is, and how many buses come into Gettysburg right now. Why isn't Hagerstown doing the same thing with the Antietam battlefields? Why aren't they building on some of that those resources that we have right now? The C&O Canal that we have right up in Williamsport that we could be building out on right now. These huge farmlands and farmers markets, and we should be we have the connections that we have with these colleges right now. With all this farmland, right, direct to market and organic food being this huge buzz. Yeah. We should have a huge restaurant culture that we have down here as well. Like we should be buzzing. We have an airport in our backyard. Like what don't we have?
Not just an airport, but an airport that can land at 747 with the president on it.
Exactly. Like what don't we have? There's not a resource that we don't have available to us if we just don't take advantage of it. Like we should be bringing it. Like there's no reason that we can't attract businesses into Hagerstown
Right.
if we're doing it the right way. And I know, unfortunately, yeah, we compete with the county, but we have to do a better job of competing with the county.
Right.
So we got to stop making a pass through and making it a destination.
So what would some things be that are almost within our reach? We don't have it yet, but it's kind of within our reach what we could do to bring us to the next level. Personally, I have this wish that Washington County could be the back porch of Maryland, where people come to relax, they have their food, they kick back a little bit. We got the vineyards, we got the foods, like you're saying. That's my wish. That we would be a locavores dream, that things locally sourced.
That's a good point. Being from New York, in New York, we like to say you want to get out the city. And when you get out the city, you go up to the Poconos, you go out to the island, and you go up to the Hamptons. I think that's what we can be. We can be that area, that destination where people want to come out for the weekend. We could be that vacation destination place where you come out and people have nice little homes they can come out to. They can come out and stay at. We can be that place to Baltimore and DC and Philadelphia. Like, we have major cities within our reach. Even New York. New York is only a 4-hour drive from here. Mm-hmm. We're connected to some of the most major cities right around. Like, we should be pulling people into this area, if not just to visit and vacation. Like you said, be that back porch. We have a huge art. Like I said, we just had a urban arts festival in Waynesboro just a couple of days ago, about a week ago now, and it was amazing. Local artists, and one thing the artist said, we don't get any respect around here. No one wants to give us the opportunity, and now we're doing it. And don't get me wrong, I know downtown Hagerstown Art Alliance is actually working as well to do a little bit more of that, and giving credit to the Art Alliance of Greater Waynesboro, who are kind of pioneering that in Waynesboro area, but bringing some of those artists into this area. We have an art district right downtown in Hagerstown, and there's money, millions of dollars of funding that can come into Hagerstown right for that art district, that we can build a huge art culture that can bring that bohemian vibe downtown with the Barbara Ingram School of Arts and the Maryland Theater. I'm on the Maryland Symphony Orchestra board as well, and we have one of the best symphonies on the East Coast right here in town.
I didn't know that.
In town. We have the Maryland Symphony Orchestra right here in town. Mm-hmm. One of the best orchestras on the East Coast.
I mean, I knew we had Maryland Symphony, but not that they were that good.
They are that good. That's just one of the reasons we're building out this huge theater. Mm-hmm. Like, we're about to be recording like an album, in the coming months. So like, with the a Grammy award-winning classical guitarist. So like, these are the things that we have right here. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, we have all the pieces to the puzzle on the table. We just need the leaders to move them around. And like I said, and I'm not saying we don't have the leaders. Mm-hmm. I just think we need a couple of more.
I like to think of Hagerstown as being world-class in some way or other. What do you think are some world-class things that we have around here? What could we promote as world-class?
I think I just hit on one. Is that the orchestra is one major world-class. I think our arts it's another world-class opportunity we have here. History, study history around the world. Just as we study world history, other countries study world history as well. And the Civil War was major, in our country, and that's right in our backyard. So people when they come to our country, this could be a destination, a stop, in that trip, up the East Coast to kind of right on the Mason-Dixon line to see what happened, when they stop in Gettysburg. When people come into Gettysburg, that's not just United States citizens that come into Gettysburg. Those are also, international guests that actually come into our country and wants to visit as well. It's a great opportunity to come into our country, and we can be housing and having those opportunities. We should be creating some kind of international tourism to bring people in to show them what happened here in Maryland. And we have reenactments that happen all the time. Yeah. We're thinking too small at times, maybe. Yeah. I'm just speaking outside the box. I don't know tourism to that degree. I'm a big idea kind of person, so I like to put all ideas on the table and then knock off the ones that may not work, but I like to at least put them all on the table.
I have a question about values. I think that the fastest way to connect with people is to share your values. So my question, what do you value the most in your life?
Family. I value my family. I value my faith. And, I would say my community and my friends, but then that all falls in the family. So, which is interesting because if you asked me probably 10 years ago, I would tell you my finances. But I think that's what came with maturity. That finances kind of took a back seat to what became more important to me. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hagerstown has the nickname Hub City.
Mm-hmm.
And once upon a time, we were the hub for the railroads. I suppose that's where the term came from. Are we still a hub city? What are we the hub of? Or what could we be the hub of?
I think we could be the hub of diversity. I think looking at the numbers, if I believe, since 2010 to 2016, we've seen minorities with African Americans and Hispanics actually rise almost about 8 to 10% in our communities alone. We've seen a larger influx of diversity in our community. We've seen a great opportunity of inclusion to offer itself around our community as well. And I think that's something we should be celebrating. I think we find ourselves too often segmenting ourselves. I think we have great communities with S, in plural when we speak about our area and our hub. I think we need to focus more on making one general community and stop having our silos of communities, and we can work on that inclusion standpoint and be that hub where we focus on that unity and inclusion and kind of that multicultural and diversity that we have here. I think that'd be a great opportunity to think about a hub of diversity and multicultural, international, brotherly love happening in a place where the Civil War was fought. That speaks volumes in itself.
I hadn't thought about it that way. Maybe that's a heartwarming thought, I think. Is there anything you would like to talk about that we haven't asked you about?
No, not in particular. I think we covered the basis. We talked politics, we talked education, we talked finance. I think those are probably the three key features to, I think, resolving, in my mind, to resolving some of the issues in addition to the arts, to resolving some of the issues that we have in our community. The nonprofits in our community, I just want to, if I had the opportunity to thank a lot of those leaders in our community that are supplementing education, and even some of the places like the Beacon House, which is out there. Actually, they do STEAM education, which teaches that teaches the science and technology and to children and the arts across the board to supplement some of the education that we're taking out of our school system. I think that's another focus we need to have. I know we kind of mentioned about awareness, and I know drugs is an issue in every community across the board right now. Again, I mentioned growing up in the 90s and where crack cocaine was a big issue. But drugs is just a tool of destruction, but the need to destroy yourself comes from addiction. And addiction comes from a emotional issue that one has. And an emotional issue comes from a need or something you're trying to fill or trying to run away from or trying to destroy. And that's either that needs to be healed. And to heal that, we got to get to the root cause. And I think if we work on educating people, getting people some hope, some focus, yes, I think we'll be better off. And so I think that's what we need to focus on. And not that awareness is not a good thing, but I think we need to focus on awareness of change, awareness of action, and focus on driving some of these programs that we're going to do a better job of improving our finances and our education and helping our small business infrastructure in our community, because we really need it, because it's no reason that our it should look like a ghost town in the heart of our city, and that's the scary part about it. So.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tereance Moore. Thank you for coming, and
thank you for your time.
We appreciate your time, and hope we can continue this conversation.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thank you.